You're listening to From Stillness, an audiobook for a mind in need of quiet. What if the thing you've been chasing your whole life, the perfect body, the perfect partner, the success, the status, the security, what if none of it is what you actually want? I know that sounds strange, maybe even frustrating. But stay with me, because we all have this inner story. This quiet, constant whisper, I'll be happy when I lose the weight, when I finally get the promotion, when I'm in love, when the debt is paid off, when I've made it. It's the story we tell ourselves every time we feel that itch, the restlessness, the not enoughness, the quiet ache that something's missing. But here's what I've learned after years, decades, of chasing all the wrong things. It was never about the goal. It was never about being thin or rich or admired. What I really wanted was to feel something, to feel worthy, to feel accepted, to feel safe, to feel loved. And I believed that once I had all the external stuff, then I could finally feel that way. But the truth is, those feelings were always mine to give. They were never waiting at the end of a finish line. They were never hiding behind someone else's approval. I just didn't know how to offer them to myself. And maybe, right now, neither do you. But that's okay. Because this isn't about regret. It's about realization. It's about learning how to come home to yourself, not someday, but now. So if you're tired of chasing, of striving, of waiting for your life to finally feel like yours, let's begin here. When I was 12 years old, I discovered something intoxicating. I stood on a stage in a school play, reciting lines that weren't mine, under lights that made me feel like someone else, someone seen, someone special. And for the first time in my young life, the room looked at me and applauded. Something in me lit up, and from that moment on, I wanted more of it. I wanted fame. But if I'm honest, truly honest, it wasn't about the lights or the applause. It was about something far more fragile. Like many kids, I didn't feel particularly important growing up. I felt invisible, ordinary, forgettable. And that little girl standing on stage believed something very simple. If I become famous, then everyone will like me. Then life will work out. Then I'll be happy. So I chased it. The dream, the spotlight, the validation. I auditioned, I got rejected, I kept going. I believed that just one more yes, one more role, one more big break would finally make me feel whole. It never did. Because here's what I didn't understand back then. I wasn't chasing fame. I was chasing worthiness. I was trying to fill an internal void with external approval. But no amount of applause could silence the part of me that didn't believe I was enough in the first place. And I'm not alone in this. So many people want to be somebody, to be noticed, admired, validated, without ever realizing that what they really long for is to be loved, to be accepted, to be seen by themselves. It took me years to realize this truth. I was already worthy, long before I stepped on that stage. And so are you. We're not valuable because of how much attention we receive. We're valuable because we exist. That's not a poetic idea, that's a fact. And when you finally stop trying to earn love and start learning how to offer it to yourself, everything changes. For a long time, I believed a cruel little story, one that many of us carry without even realizing. The story went like this. No one will truly love me unless I'm thin. That belief lived in the background of every decision I made. Every meal came with guilt. Every glance in the mirror came with judgment. And every failed relationship, I blamed my body. Not compatible? No, I wasn't pretty enough. Didn't last. Clearly, I just wasn't thin enough to be lovable. It sounds harsh now, looking back. But when you live in that mindset, it doesn't feel harsh. It feels logical. It feels like truth. So I made it my mission. I chased the perfect body like it was the golden key to happiness. And I did it. I got thin. I fell in love. I entered the kind of relationship I had dreamed of. One filled with support, affection, partnership. And yet, the obsession didn't go away. Even as love surrounded me, the voice in my head kept asking, what if they stop loving me if I change? What if I gain weight? What if I let go? That's when the truth hit me. The problem wasn't the shape of my body, it was the shape of my self-worth. What I had been seeking all along wasn't just a flat stomach or a number on a scale. What I was really craving was my own love, to feel safe in my skin, to feel accepted without condition, to look at myself and not just say, I'm okay, but actually mean it, regardless of my size, regardless of how anyone else might see me. And that kind of love? It was never out there. It was always waiting inside me, quietly, patiently, just waiting for me to stop running long enough to listen. So if you're still fighting your reflection, still believing love lives on the other side of better, maybe it's time to ask yourself, what am I really hungry for? Because sometimes the deepest hunger is for our own acceptance. Have you ever chased a goal with everything you had, only to reach it, and feel strangely hollow? That job you wanted so badly, that milestone you thought would change everything, that moment you told yourself, this is it. When I get here, I'll finally feel enough. And maybe, for a little while, it felt like it worked. You felt proud, accomplished, maybe even happy. But then, quietly, inevitably, the feeling faded. And before you knew it, there was another goal. Another chase. Another reason to keep striving. That cycle? It's exhausting. And it tricks us into believing that happiness is always just one achievement away. But the truth is, if joy only ever arrives at the finish line, we'll spend our whole lives running toward a version of ourselves that is finally worthy. Running away from the silence that keeps asking, is this really it? What I've learned is this: no goal, no accolade, no status symbol can replace a lack of self-worth. Achievement might bring satisfaction, but it doesn't bring peace. And if we don't learn how to feel whole before we arrive, we'll never feel whole when we arrive. The question isn't whether goals are bad, they're not. But when we tie our identity to them, we forget that who we are isn't something we earn. It's something we uncover, something we remember. So next time you find yourself sprinting toward the next thing, pause and ask yourself, what am I hoping this will make me feel? Because chances are that feeling is already available, not someday, but now. There's a kind of wisdom you can't learn from books. You learn it by sitting with people who have lived longer than you, by listening, really listening, to what life has taught them when the noise dies down and all that's left is honesty. I've spent over 20 years working with the elderly. Most of my patients are in their 70s, 80s, 90s, some even over 100. And being in their presence changes you. It humbles you. It teaches you what actually matters. They come from every walk of life. Some live in modest flats, others in homes that overlook the ocean. Some spend their pensions on lottery tickets, chasing dreams they no longer expect to enjoy. When I ask them what they'd do if they won, they usually smile and say, I'd give it to my family. But then there are the others, the ones who radiate something different, a spark, a lightness. They're curious, joyful, always learning. They laugh at wrinkles. They make jokes about forgetting names. They travel. They garden. They jump out of planes at 85. These are the people who never stopped evolving. And you can feel it. They have presence. They've made peace with the passage of time without giving up on what makes life worth living. They've let go of the illusion of control, but held tightly to meaning. And I know, that the real difference isn't money or looks or luck. It's purpose. It's growth. It's choosing to stay alive inside even as the body slows down. One thing I've seen over and over again, you're either evolving or you're shrinking. There is no staying the same. If you're not growing, learning, stretching, engaging, then life starts to close in. Not all at once. Quietly. Slowly. Until one day you realize you're not really living anymore, just repeating. So maybe the question isn't, how long will I live? Maybe the real question is, how fully will I live while I'm still here? We like to believe that certain insecurities will fade with time, that age will bring peace, that one day we'll simply stop caring about what we look like in the mirror. But the truth? It doesn't just fade. Not unless we choose to let it go. I've met women in their 80s and 90s who still carry the weight of comparison. One of my patients, 92 years old, once looked at me, eyes full of frustration, and said, "My daughter-in-law is 70 and has such lovely skin. I wish mine looked like that. She wanted to buy the same $12 moisturizer, as if that would undo the years. And I just stood there, stunned. Not because she felt that way, but because I realized this never stops. Unless we stop it. There's no magic age where you wake up and all your self-doubt is gone. No number of candles on a birthday cake that guarantees self-acceptance. You have to decide. You have to choose, actively and intentionally, to no longer let your worth be defined by the surface. And when you do, when you look in the mirror and soften instead of criticize, when you see laugh lines as proof you lived, not evidence of loss, something changes. Not just in how you see yourself, but in how you move through the world. Because true freedom begins when you stop fighting the reflection and start honoring the life behind the face. There's a kind of freedom that doesn't come from having more money or more time or more approval. It's quieter than that, more subtle. But once you taste it, you never forget it. It's the freedom of not being controlled by what used to scare you. It's when someone criticizes you, and instead of shrinking, you simply nod and move on. It's when you walk into a room, not wondering, do they like me? But asking, who do I get to meet today? It's when you speak in front of people and your voice doesn't shake, not because you don't care, but because you no longer let fear lead the way. That freedom doesn't arrive overnight. It's built. Moment by moment, choice by choice. It's forged through healing, through learning how to stay present with discomfort, through realizing that what once triggered you doesn't have to define you anymore. There was a time when I lived constantly on edge, overthinking every word I said, replaying interactions, analyzing the tone of someone's text message. I gave so much power away without realizing it. Power over my mood, over my confidence, over my peace. But eventually, you get tired of being emotionally hijacked by other people's opinions. Eventually, you realize they don't hold the pen. You do. True confidence isn't loud. It's not performative. It's quiet. It's when someone's approval feels nice but not necessary. It's when rejection stings but doesn't unravel you. It's when your center is no longer outside of you. It's within. And when you reach that point, life softens. Not because the world changes, but because you've finally taken your power back. There was a time when I believed that once I paid off my mortgage, I'd finally feel safe, secure, settled, like I could exhale for the first time in years. It became this distant point on the horizon, 25 years away, that held my peace hostage. But then someone asked me a simple question. Imagine you've paid it off. Now what? And immediately, my mind filled with new worries. What about the rates, the bills, emergencies? What if the money runs out? That's when it hit me. The fear wasn't really about the mortgage, it was about scarcity, about living with this quiet undercurrent of not enough money, not enough control, not enough certainty. And that fear doesn't disappear when the numbers change. It dissolves when your relationship with safety changes. When you stop outsourcing it to circumstances and start cultivating it within yourself. These days, I still want financial freedom. Of course I do. But I no longer believe that peace is waiting on the other side of a goal. I create it now by reminding myself that I've always been looked after. That life, while unpredictable, has a way of unfolding in my favor, even when I don't see it right away. Einstein once said, "The most important decision we make is whether we believe we live in a friendly or hostile universe." And I've chosen to believe in a friendly one. Not because life is easy, but because I've seen what happens when I stop bracing for the worst and start trusting that I can handle whatever comes. Not long ago, I released a video on YouTube that did better than I ever expected. 33,000 views. Comments from strangers who were touched, moved, grateful. It was the kind of milestone I'd dreamed about for years. A moment that, in my mind, would finally mean I'd made it. And for a brief moment, it felt incredible. But then, fear crept in. What if the next video doesn't do as well? What if that was just a fluke? What if I can't replicate that success? And suddenly, what was once a celebration became a source of pressure. That's the trap no one warns you about. Success doesn't silence your insecurities. Sometimes, it just gives them a new stage, a bigger audience, a louder echo. But then I remembered something important. The whole reason I started this wasn't to go viral. It was to share, to serve, to contribute something meaningful, to speak to the quiet parts of people's hearts and remind them they're not alone. Of course I want my videos to do well. Of course I care about growth. But that's not the point. The point is connection. The point is truth. The point is adding value, not chasing validation. And that applies far beyond YouTube. In any part of life, business, relationships, creativity, we can lose ourselves if we forget the why. The deeper reason we started in the first place. So now, whenever fear shows up in the middle of a win, I pause. I breathe. And I come back to this. I didn't come here to be impressive. I came here to be of use. And when I remember that, the pressure lifts and the purpose returns. We grow up believing that life is about reaching something, a number, a milestone, a moment where everything makes sense and finally feels complete. We think the summit is the reward. That happiness waits for us at the top of some invisible mountain. But what if that's never been true? What if the journey, with all its twists, stumbles, detours, and delays, was always the point? A teacher once told me, the journey is the destination. And at first, I didn't get it. It sounded poetic, sure, but vague. Now I understand it in my bones. Because every time you overcome something that scared you, every time you fail and still keep going, every time you learn how to forgive, how to begin again, how to keep your heart open, that is the destination. That's the real prize. It's not the peak that defines you. It's who you became getting there. And the funny thing is, once you reach that peak, there's always another mountain, and then another, and then another. And thank God for that. Because how dull would life be if we stopped growing? So maybe it's not about rushing towards some imagined finish line. Maybe it's about walking, with presence, with courage, with wonder, one step at a time. Because the messy, imperfect, sometimes miraculous path you're on right now, that's where the beauty is. That's where you meet yourself. So much of our suffering comes from the belief that what we need is still out there. That peace, love, security, joy, they're waiting for us somewhere down the road, just beyond the next achievement, the next relationship, the next version of ourselves. But here's the truth that took me decades to fully understand. Everything you've been chasing has always been a feeling, and that feeling is something you can choose to give yourself right now. You want to feel worthy? You don't have to lose 10 pounds or land the dream job. You can decide, in this moment, that your worth isn't negotiable, that you're valuable simply because you exist. You want to feel loved? Don't wait for someone else to show up and prove it to you. You can offer yourself the love, the gentleness, the care you've always needed, starting now. You want to feel safe? Start trusting that life doesn't have to be perfect to be supportive, that you don't have to control everything to be okay, that you've survived so much already, and you're still here. This isn't about giving up on goals, it's about unhooking your happiness from outcomes. Dream big, strive, building. But don't abandon yourself in the process, because the most radical truth is this: you are already enough, not when you arrive, not when they approve, right here, right now, as you are. And the moment you stop chasing the feeling, you'll finally realize it's been within you all along.